I've realized that I've prioritized a lot of the wrong things, such as trying to convince people of what our goals are, or convince people to stay when they might want to leave, or refine our process to cater to someone else's need. At the end of the day, when I look at it, none of that worked. I decided, what is my goal? I've said it for many, many years now, and my team will say it as well. We want to build cool shit with cool people. It is Nick, just Nick. I gotta say, Tyler's been doing these midweeks all 2023, and I have been telling him that I was gonna do it, jump in, add to the content that we're putting out, and I just simply didn't prioritize it. A couple years ago, I was doing the NS podcast, Nick Schiffer podcast, NSBuilders podcast, and stopped that as well. But I have committed to doing this more often. I'm in my new office. I have nothing set up except for this podcast equipment. I don't even have my good camera set up. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're dealing with my laptop camera. But yeah, I wanted to hop on here and say that, hey, I'm going to add to the midweeks. I want to talk a little bit about what I specifically do when it comes to running my business or in being a partner in other businesses, things like our spec project, 45 White Oak, and all the things that are just strictly related to me. And, because I talk to a lot of you guys on these consulting calls, nickschiffer.com/booking. If you guys want to book a time with me, you head over to the website and do that. And I have a lot of fun, and I've done well over 100 at this point. And I get a lot of great feedback. A lot of you guys will schedule multiple calls, which is amazing. But, it's an opportunity for me to understand how I can provide value. And oftentimes it's, value that or advice that I'm bringing to the table that I may have learned a week before, a month before, a year before, or any time between that. But the point being is, like, I really believe that this industry has made a huge shift to being more collaborative over being more competitive. I've even seen it in my own market. And I know our market is unique to all of the US, but the reality is I've been able to connect with a lot of our local builders and just been straight up and said, listen, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'd rather be collaborative. I don't, yes, we're going to compete for jobs sometimes. But at the end of the day, I want us to be an asset to one another rather than constantly just be butting heads. And that's not going to be every builder. Not every builder is interested in doing that. But those that are, I think, are going to be really important partners as we grow. And I'm speaking as NSBuilders. But yeah, what's up? So I would say, we had an interesting year. I've been able to, well, let me back up. We always take Christmas to New Year's off. All the employees get paid for that week. And we take it off, and usually it's 100% family time, kids time. And that's generally what it is. But this time I decided to take one day and sit down with, I was going to say pen and paper, but it was my Apple Pencil and my iPad, and just jot down basically everything that was on my mind, through all the different brands, NSBuilders, Materia, Motif, Modern Craftsman, and even some of my personal investments in real estate and things like that. And the reason I did that, I spent all day doing it, is that I wanted to reflect on where we are today and where I wanted to be a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And I felt as though the only way for me to do that was to at least get everything out on paper and figure out what's not working. I think about business specifically, right? A lot of you guys listening, I know have struggled in terms of turning a profit. Cash flow is an issue. Why am I not making any money? And I say I know that because I talk to a lot of you guys. And we've had some amazing projects, really profitable projects. And one of the things I've said on a few calls is like, doesn't matter how profitable the project is, if you're not doing enough of them to bring in enough cash to run the overhead of the business, those profitable projects mean nothing. You need to understand how much profit you need as an entire business, and figure out how many projects you need to run that, to run the business. And I think that's where a lot of times there's an oversight. I think guys ignore the fact, like, I'm making so much money on this job. I'm making 30%, 40%, whatever it is, 20%, but not realizing all of the overhead and expense that it takes to just run the business. Where it's like you actually need to increase your volume or decrease your overhead. And we've been in similar positions, the last couple of years where, I personally heavily invest into the growth of the company, especially from a marketing perspective, obviously with video and things like that. But for me, I know that there's an ROI to it. And the question really just comes to mind every year is, well, when is that ROI, and when do I stop, quote unquote, over investing? And is there a point in time where I have to allow us to catch up to where I'm promoting us to be? And I don't really necessarily have the answer to that, but I think, in that time of reflection, I've realized that I've prioritized a lot of the wrong things, and I've prioritized things, such as, trying to, convince people of what our goals are, or convince people to stay when they might want to leave, or refine our process to cater to someone else's need. And those all, at the end of the day, when I look at it, none of that worked. And for me, I decided, what is my goal? What is our goal? Like, my goal personally, and I've said it for many, many years now, and many of my team, will say it as well, is we want to build cool shit with cool people. And when we talk about cool shit, it's homes, it's millwork, it's anything. I don't care what I'm building. I just want to build something. Right now in my life, I want to build cool ass homes. That's what I'm doing, and the millwork is a huge part of it. You look at 45 White Oak. That entire home has some amazing millwork features. So of course, like, that all matters to me. I don't know, maybe in the future I switch back to cars. I used to build cars and had a lot of fun doing that, but right now it's homes. I want to build cool homes. And when I think about cool people, that's everyone. That's the my team in the office, that's my team on site, that's the architect, the interior designer, the client. All of those people have to be cool. And and I'm not saying like, define cool however you want, but I'm saying, like, some people that understand and value what we're doing and want to accomplish something really cool, like want to build a cool home. And that doesn't mean it has to be super expensive. Just frankly, a lot of our projects are super expensive, and I know that. But we have a couple projects right now that are super challenging. We're in pre-construction. They're super challenging, and they're a smaller budget. And myself and the architect, we chat on a daily basis about one of them. And there's the notion, like, maybe this project just isn't a good fit for us. And then we change our tune, and we're like, this is bullshit. We got to figure this out. Like, there's a way to do this. And I think that is what I have so much fun with. And I have to be careful, because I can burden my team with chasing a project that doesn't make sense. So a lot of this is internal dialogue, but it's like, there's a way to accomplish everything. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but there is a way to accomplish anything. And the example I've used before is, when our projects go over schedule, it's like, well, that's super frustrating, because I know that I sold the job to a client at a specific schedule, and when we go over schedule, that means we didn't deliver on our promise. And I've gotten pushback from the team where it's like, you can't accomplish that in that amount of time. And the most extreme example would be, well, you watch Extreme Home Makeover, they build a house in like 7 days. And the immediate reaction is like, yes, but it's a piece of crap. It's like, you're right. There's a lot of, there's the whole company, I believe, like I remember reading about this years ago. There's a whole company that comes in and basically fixes everything for 6 months. But now we're talking about a house that was built in 6 months and a week. That's still fast for what that product ended up being. And it's like, well then, but yeah, but there's 1,000 people on the job site and it's a nightmare. It's like, fair. Like, would 500 people not be a nightmare? Could you, my, and I look at that extreme example because I feel like a lot of times people are making the decision from bottom up, where it's like they're trying to figure out, like, all right, they're stacking, like, all right, this is going to take that much time, and this and this and this and this, and next thing you know, it's, you know 2 years, where it's like, well, let's work backwards. If I said it was 18 months, how would we accomplish that in 18 months? And the question is, what is it? More people? And it's like, well, if it's more people, that doesn't necessarily mean it's more money, because you're still expending the man hours that it's going to take to get the job done. So I would argue that it's going to cost exactly the same amount of money. You're staffing more people. Well, what does that take? It takes more preparation. It takes more being more proactive. It takes more planning. All of that, sure. But that's going to offset the cost of supervising the job for an additional 6 months. Um, and my point here is, we flip it to a less expensive home, and I think about these smaller projects that we have. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's super complicated, to get these homes to be under a certain amount of money. Had a chat with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, dude, you can't even build a home for under $1 million anymore around here. It just doesn't exist. Even a simple home is going to cost $1 million. And there's a lot of truth to that. But for me, I question, like, what are the things that are costing that amount of money? And, oftentimes, especially when you talk about design and architecture, oftentimes we get caught up in material selection, and there's things that, just cost an inherent amount of money. And oftentimes it might be design related or brand or product related. So then we look at, well, are there other ways to accomplish that same detail or that same look for a lesser amount of money? Not not saying that we need to use a lesser quality, but there might be a product, or there might be a material that accomplishes the same thing for less amount of money. But the reality is that those are the nickel dimes. That's where you can, of course, you can spend huge money on really expensive material. But generally speaking, if you're building just a house that is straightforward, then the material is probably going to be the material. So then it's labor, and labor is very expensive. The last 3 years, from 2020 to 2023, all labor rates across all trades have went up significantly. We see 30+%. And so we're seeing these huge, let me clarify, we're seeing 30+% of cost of construction change from 20 to 2023, and most of that is related to labor. So we think about labor, and we think about, how do we simplify labor? How do we reduce the amount of time it takes to build on site? And because if we do it in less time and less labor, it costs less money. And those are the conversations I've had around offsite construction, panelization, and the simplest, comparison is a cabinet shop. Processing plywood. At this point, every cabinet shop most cabinet shops are processing plywood on a CNC, and those CNCs are becoming more and more, complex in the sense that, they're automatically feeding plywood, cutting it, sending it through an automatic edge bander, and it pops out the other side, and someone assembles it in a matter of minutes. Versus, taking that sheet, picking it up, putting it on a table saw, marking it, laying it out, cutting it piece by piece. You're reducing the amount of time that box takes to make. And there's constantly this argument that, well, you're removing the craftsmanship from the product, and I disagree with that. I think that you're allowing the craftsmanship to be, still input where, in my opinion, matters, where it matter where the box construction, in my opinion, is something that can be done by a computer, can be done by a CNC. You're not getting, you're asking for it to be a box with some adjustable shelves in it, and now you can work with the guy or the girl that's going to make the face frames and the doors, and a lot of that process is going to be automated. You're going to push it through a molder. You're not doing it by hand anymore. So, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here in terms of technology and how it relates to construction. But I think that, these are the questions that come up when I'm thinking about, how to build cool projects that don't necessarily have an unlimited budget. And it's a matter of like, what can we do to simplify each of the processes, and look at each and every line item, every division, site work. What can we do to simplify site work? Okay, well, this particular site, if the most of the cost is in the excavating. Okay, do we need to excavate? Can we put a frost protected slab on top of the existing earth? Well, we could, and here, all right, let's do a cost analysis on that. Is it less expensive or more? Concrete. It's like, all right, well, concrete. What's oh, well, the foundation is, XYZ. It's like, all right, well, have we asked the engineer if that foundation is required to be that thickness? Do we need that much rebar? If we're not going to if we're not going to excavate, can we, what's the slab on grade detail? Is that going to save us cost? And just looking at each and every line item and or division, and understanding the things that we can do to drive that number in a direction that is favorable for the project. But at the end of the day, like, I want to build cool shit with cool people, and I want to do it for clients. I want to do it with investors. I want to do it for ourselves. I want to do it, for people that just want to be part of what we're doing. And, I'll leave it with this, is that the 45 White Oak project, is an ambitious project for us. And I'm super excited to have some great partners in on that, that will continue to share over time. But that project is really designed to be kind of our stamp in terms of the direction of our business. We want to be known for these ambitious projects. We want to be known for these really high quality, high design homes, that hit the market and challenge the status quo. And yes, that's a spec for us, and our intent is to pre-sell it. And our intent is to pre-sell it for a profit and make a profit on that project. But almost more importantly is that it sets the portfolio for our future, and it also builds interest. So when someone comes over and sees it, if they don't buy it, they're interested in building with us because of what we've done there. So if we can sell it for a profit and get a client on the back end, that's a double win for us. And I think that with the way we document our projects, and the way we showcase the product that we use, and the how to videos that we put out, and site visit, and things of that, I think that there's going to be a lot of value built around that, and a lot of interest. And I'm confident that we're going to find the one person that wants to buy it, instead of building it for thousands of people. So there's that. Yeah. So happy New Year, guys. I'm excited to jump in on this. Shoot me a DM on at Nick Schiffer. I want to make sure that I'm getting your questions answered. Of course, make sure you follow at Modern Craftsman Pod on Instagram. And do us a favor, head over to iTunes or any podcast app that you are listening on, and make sure you drop us a review. It keeps us in the ranking. Of course, head over to Modern Craftsman Co. Modern Craftsman.co website, and make sure you pick up some swag. We got some cool pencils. We got some cool Hive branded notebooks. T-shirts are out of stock. We have another piece of apparel coming up soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you guys are going to be at International Builder Show, Tyler and I will be there. I'll also be there with Brad and Morgan for Contractor Coalition Summit. Monday night, we're hosting an event. Head over to at Nick Schiffer on Instagram. There's a link in the bio if you want to sign up. And then we're also going to be at JLC this spring. Tyler and I are hosting two presentations. One of them is 3 hours long, and that is, I mean, I can talk, but that's a long time. So I would definitely, I don't know if it's allowed, but I would definitely bring snacks for that one. And then lastly, if you're interested in showing up to or attending our summit with Brad and Morgan and myself, we're hosting one in Minnesota in May. Link is in my bio. It's a 30-person max event. It's an in-depth 3-day event with a ton of knowledge, a lot of what we share here on the podcast, but we get really granular and share what it takes to build and run and maintain a profitable business, and some of the things that we've put in place, from contracts to schedules to even the way we use social media and create additional streams of revenue. So like I said, head over to my bio on Instagram, and yeah, glad to be doing this again, and I'll catch you next week.